back to Recovery Demystified. I'm your queer and neurodivergent host, Early. If you felt left behind by the traditional addiction recovery industrial complex, guess what? I'm coming back for you, and I know where all the nooks and crannies are, so you're not going to be left behind anymore. Today, we've got another interview for you. I interviewed my old friend, TK. And we've known each other for a really long time. And I've heard bits and pieces of their addiction and recovery story. They've been sober since I met them. But I never got to hear the full story until today. It's really important for me to uplift and amplify voices of historically marginalized communities. It's important that we hear the queer story. It's important that we hear the story of poverty, single parenting. It's important that we hear the story of the depth of stress of addiction within late stage capitalism and folks who are under the boot of historical marginalization. And TK tells that story brilliantly. They describe the peeling back the layers of the onion, basically like going from removing the substances and then getting to the next layer and digging down deep until you get to the root, getting to the middle of it and finding what caused all the discomfort in the first place and what is the cure for that. And for them, it was loneliness and finding community. And I think that that's like a very, very human struggle that a lot of us go through. And a lot of us do start drinking and partying in order to try to find community. And that's not the answer. Often it can make us like feel more lonely. So I hope you get something out of listening to this interview. I really enjoyed being able to speak with them and hear their truth. And without further ado, here's my interview with TK. Hi, TK. I'm so excited to have you here today. Would you start by introducing yourself to the audience, your name and pronouns, and tell us what makes you you?
Yeah, so my name's TK. I am they, them. I'm about 40. I play music. I got a family. I do bookkeeping. That's about it.
Cool. Well, we're here today to talk about your life and path in and out of addiction. I'm super curious. What was it like being a kid? What was your first sort of exposure to alcohol or drugs? What was it like growing up? Then when did things sort of start to get bad? When did you see it was a problem? And like finally, how'd you make your way out of it? So wherever you want to start.
Well, I grew up in a household that didn't have any substance abuse problems in it. Neither of my folks drank, smoked, neither of them drugged. They didn't have any experience with that throughout their whole life. I have an older sister that had her own struggle, but I wasn't aware of it when it was going on. Like, it's just something we didn't talk about.
How much older was she?
4 years.
4 years.
And my first time being around alcohol was through a friend's parents. They picked us up to go camping or something. And on the drive out to the campsite, the mom, the riding passenger, says something like, they tell you you're not supposed to do it while you're in the car, but I don't care. And then cracked a beer.
Oh my goodness. How old are you?
Must have been 7 or 8. But I still didn't, at that time, I still didn't know that it was alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just watching in movies and like absorbing it that way was really how I got to understand that there was this thing that made people behave differently. My first use of it wasn't even until I was 19. Like all throughout my high school years, I had a firm line of no alcohol and no drugs. I watched all my friends drink and drug and do all sorts of stupid shit. And I was always the one who, considered myself sober. I was smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee.
And what prevented you from that experimentation that a lot of teenagers have? Like what was keeping you from it at that time?
I don't even know, but probably just being scared, like growing up in a household where there was no exposure to it. We didn't even get to talk about not doing it. I think my folks just wanted us to absorb that lesson from society, or those, your brain on drugs ads, like those kind of things. But I initially started drinking out of spite. I had a partner at the time, and as young lovers do, they'd bother the other one with their own life choices. And I was like, well, I'll show her. I'll get drunk tonight with all my friends who are already drinking. And I didn't stop for a couple of months. And throughout my abuse of alcohol, I went back and forth from where I grew up in Texas and Northwest Arkansas, just back and forth, bouncing back and forth, running from my problems. And I was able to move to a new place and not drink for a while.
The geographical cure, as they call it. Yeah.
Geographical.
If only I can leave this horrible place and all my problems will go away. TK, I want to backtrack a little bit. I'm curious, that first exposure to alcohol, how did it feel? Like, I know a lot of people describe it as kind of like people who end up getting addicted will describe it as like an aha moment, like some sort of like euphoria or something, or, but it's not the case with everyone. Do you remember, like why you had that first exposure and then just sort of continued on with it after that?
I guess the reason I continued on with it was because it made managing my problems seem easier. Because I was able to not think about them. I hadn't really learned the coping skills to like manage anxiety, nor did I really think that that's what was going on with me, was feeling anxious in those days. But yeah, I remember the first night really well. It was like 3 cans of Budweiser and I was knocked out, and I woke up the next day and I was like, wow, that was great. Let's do it again. And I ran from my problems so much. Yeah, I moved many times.
So you're moving around a lot, trying to avoid your problems. How old were you around then? And did it work?
No, it definitely didn't work. I started when I was 19, and I was probably 20 the first time I moved up to Northwest Arkansas. And I was just slowly becoming a bigger and bigger asshole and treating people poorly. My friends, my loved ones, my family. I pretty much just avoided talking to my folks and my sister. And, you could say that I recognized how much of an asshole I was becoming because I was avoiding them. But I, as many of us do, we treat we treat the people close to us really poorly and make them suffer and give them a lot of stuff that they have to go through. And, I was first introduced to the idea of alcoholism, or AA as well, through one of my managers at one of my jobs, and she was in the program, and she really liked to tell everybody what they were doing wrong. And for me, it was that I was drinking and being an asshole. And, of course, being a drunk asshole, you don't want to hear that.
100%, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, so I, quit, moved back to Texas, did some stupid shit there, quit those jobs, moved back, and eventually me and this manager become like pretty good friends. And in retrospect, now I can see that she was trying to save me from myself. which is not something you can do, not something I've been able to do for anybody, honestly. But I'll never forget the way that she mailed me my final paycheck to Texas was as a bookmark in the AA book, in the big book, and with the passage underlined that was, the alcoholic is like a tornado roaring his way through the lives of others. Hearts are broken, sweet relationships are dead, affections have been uprooted. And
she wasn't playing games with you.
No, she was not. But I also, at the same time, like, I threw the book away. I didn't read it. I didn't want to hear it from her. She... So eventually I wind up living out of my car down in Austin, and I guess going back and forth between living out of my car and living in a friend's couch, living on a friend's couch. And, and he tells me one day that his girlfriend's moving in and that I won't be able to stay with him anymore because of my reputation of how I act when I'm drunk. And that really just deflated my opinion of myself, just made me feel like I was a real big piece of shit. And
was that the first time you had a feeling of needing to take accountability for your actions instead of running away from them?
Yes. And what I did was I ran away. Went to my folks' house, and I was real fortunate to still have not burned that bridge. And I was able to go there and stay in their storage room and just hide away from all my problems, kept drinking, hid that from them. And then eventually this led to me rolling my car. And
what happened? What's the story with that?
Well, I was trying to make friends, which in this part of my life, the only way that I could do that I thought was going to drink with people, so I was drinking at, some guy from high school's house and drinking there. And I'm pretty sure I ended up buying Coke and doing Coke too. And then just drinking a whole lot and driving back home to my folks' house and just, on the country roads, just drifting and then rolling. I had no clue what happened. I came to and, my windows are broken and thankfully, I'm okay. I didn't hit anybody. I just rolled over a mailbox.
Were you blacked out?
I was.
Yeah.
I was. And, so from there, I called up that old boss of mine and was like, hey, how did you quit drinking? Tell me all your tips and tricks. And I can't even remember what she said. I just remember thinking, well, none of that's going to work for me. And then I tried isolation. Just isolating myself from my friends, leaning into the support that I had from my folks. And
did you come clean and tell your parents about what was going on after that? You pretty much had to, huh?
Yeah, I pretty much had to.
Did you end up in jail or in the hospital, or how'd you get out of the wreck?
I got out of the wreck because my one of our neighbors out there had a tow truck, so he towed my car to my folks' house, and it stayed there. And then I paid to replace that mailbox that I rolled over. So, a very privileged point of not having to interact with the police in regards to, that horrible decision.
And how old were you?
Oh, I was 21.
So first drink at 19 and rolling the car and sort of hitting rock bottom by 21.
Yeah. And that was the first, my first attempt at getting sober. And I made it about 3 months, before I started going out again and, not even going out to bars, just going out and being social, the only people that I was, the only activity, of people I was interacting with was just getting fucked up on whatever,
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I started smoking weed. That's when I started doing Coke or ecstasy or just anything. After my first attempt of sobriety, I leaned even further into abuse, substance abuse, or what have you.
Did you start drinking again in addition to using those drugs?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And one of the people that I was going out with I eventually married. And, we had our relationship with our substance abuses intertwined. And we wound up living on a military base in Kentucky. And, still pretty young. I was 23 by that time. And, I had attempted to enlist in the military, in the Army, when I was under the influence of alcohol. Thought it was a good idea, something I would never do in my right mind. But, this person I married, we enlisted together. And then...
Was she drunk too?
She was drunk too.
Oh, yeah. My goodness.
We enlisted together, and then...
This is like level 10 hangover regret right here. Oh my God.
I know.
What have I done? The U.S. Army.
So the funny thing is we shaved my head to get ready for basic, and the recruiter said, "Oh, holy shit, like you weren't lying. You do have a tattoo on your head. That's against the rules. Now we have to come up with a reason for you to not go to the Army." But my wife at the time didn't have that reason, so she just had to go to the Army.
Oh my God.
And
what in that night, and what was your drunken logic? Like, was the Army an escape from your addiction? What was the drunken logic?
Yes, exactly. It was an escape from my addiction. Throughout my life, with substances or with social interactions or other anything impulsive or compulsive, I was always just trying to belong, find a way to not have to worry about how difficult life is. And my drunken logic that time was, well, the Army will provide for everything, and all I have to do is just whatever they tell me. I don't even have to think about it. I'm very fortunate that I didn't have to go.
Oh my gosh! So thank God for the head tattoo.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, so I married this gal, and then I went with her after her training to live on the Army base up in Fort Knox. And after a couple months of being up there, and I'm just drinking more than ever because I'm on the Army base, and that's all they had. Whereas I would have done other drugs if I had it. But a couple of months of that, then we're pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the aha moment for me. It's like, oh, holy shit! I'm about to be a parent, and I can't even take care of myself, So I quit. I poured out all the alcohol, and I said I wasn't going to buy anymore, wasn't going to drink anymore. And
was it the same deal with your ex? Were you at the same goalpost at the moment? Like when she found out she was pregnant, was she also whoa, it's time to quit? Or did you all kind of go separate paths at that moment?
We had to go separate paths. I would say probably fortunately for me, she told me that I would never do it, and I would never be able to quit drinking, and I would never be a good father and all this stuff, because then that gave me the fuel to quit drinking out of spite as well. And I really I've thanked her for that, because that was a really good push to prove her wrong that I could really do this.
Mm-hmm. Start drinking out of spite in a partnership. Stop drinking out of spite in a partnership. We're seeing a pattern here.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I've learned since then. But so, my father comes from a different time, and not having the experience of addiction, his suggestion was, well, try couples therapy at least, and then you can say you tried. You tried to stay together. So we did couples therapy with a chaplain on the Army base. for a month before she quit going, and then another month, and it was just me going to couples therapy by myself. And I was like, fuck this. I'm going to move to where I know a sober person.
Was that your boss that gave you the book? Oh,
that's
my
right.
Gosh.
So I move in with her and her husband in Northwest Arkansas, and I must have been like 3 or 4 months sober then, maybe, and this time it really did stick. I got a job, and I didn't lean on that crutch for social interaction. If anything, like I leaned on the other crutch of like forming an identity of like the sober guy there. And, so everybody at this job knew that I would say no. Do I want to drink? No. Like, why even ask? Like, this person's going to say no. And so that was really great to form.
In that first few months, I know you mentioned that it was your beginning fuel was a fire of spite. Mm-hmm. If you had like cravings or like weak moments during those first few months, was spite, did that work every time, or did you develop other coping skills or things that worked for you when you got cravings during those first few months?
Good question. I did go to AA. I was trying to find community with other sober people, and I got a sponsor, and I was starting to work through the steps, and when I found sparkling water, that really helped me to just like drink 3 cans of sparkling water at night when I'm having a bad night of cravings, and like wanting a beer. Like that was really helpful. And, it fulfilled this like compulsive need to have like a cold can in your hand and then smish it,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, seltzer water, the favorite drink of sober people.
Yes. Yeah.
It's our national drink. What about the meetings? Did they give you the sense of community that you needed? Did it fill a need that you were looking for, or what did you get or not get out of that?
It filled a need of having some place to go where people were and I wouldn't be alone. But it didn't fulfill the need of feeling like a community. It didn't feel like a community. The sponsor that I got eventually told me that because I wasn't willing to quit smoking weed, that he wasn't willing to sponsor me.
Yeah.
So, like I made the personal inventory and really just like, I think I've heard you say it before, is like you just re-traumatize yourself going through that.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, because they're like, when you do that personal inventory, they're like, okay, take everyone you resent and then make it your fault. And without, making this all about myself or whatever, some of the people I resent were like people who took advantage of me and harmed me when I was a child. And I'm not going to make that my fault. And going over all of this stuff, it's like, sure, some of this I do have a part in, and I do need to apologize for hurting like some people, like obviously. But yeah, just like dredging up a lifetime of pain. Yeah, it was more re-traumatizing in my experience. And it sounds like that is perhaps your experience as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And like part of the step being, reaching out to all these people that I've hurt and apologizing and admitting my wrongs, like there were people that I know would never want to hear from me again, and like rightfully so, I feel like it is my responsibility as having done those things to be the one to carry that weight, not try to make myself feel better about it by apologizing to the person that I've harmed.
Absolutely. And sometimes like with the weed thing, it's like, no, your definition of recovery and sobriety is whatever works for you in your life. And if weed is a healthy coping skill for you, or even if it's just a less bad coping skill and it's harm reduction, like that is your life to define. And someone telling you they're going to withhold recovery resources from you because you need to use weed as a coping skill. For some people, that's a death sentence. For some people, withdrawing that life-saving care is going to lead them to like be more isolated and go back out. So I think that like broadly in the recovery community, we need to accept people's personalized definitions of recovery. And if you want to smoke weed, like go for it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So you're in that first few months of recovery, you move back in, or you move in with the one sober person, you know, your boss, and that's in Northwest Arkansas?
Yes.
And how did that go?
I feel like I learned that being sober wasn't going to solve all my problems. And I learned that by watching this person still have a lot of problems in their own life. And it being the only sober person that I knew at the time, you know, like through a lot of reflection, I see like I still got a lot of problems in my own life as well. So like as quickly as I could, I got my own place. And, you know, and by this time, like my kid's born, you know, I did what I could to be involved as much as possible. This time my kid's living in Texas, and, you know, my ex-wife and her family asking me why I'm running from the responsibility of being a parent. And, you know, in my head, I was, you know, people talk about running from stuff or running to stuff, you know, this kind of mental gymnastics kind of stuff. And I just knew that I could not stay sober of alcohol in Texas. So, you know, staying here was going to be the best thing for me, thus the best thing for my kid. And
did your ex get sober, or was she still drinking with a new baby?
My ex's issue started to worsen, and it became less about drinking and more about other harder drugs. And after some time of her staying at home with her folks and our baby, she got kicked out because of you know, her struggles. And then, due to a wild occurrence of her mother passing, that was like the first domino that fell that eventually led to my ex suing me for custody and me winning custody.
Oh, wow.
In that court battle. And so to prepare for that time in court, I quit smoking pot, and I started to voluntarily submit drug tests to the court, and I just doing like absolutely everything that I could to show this court that the child would be better off with me.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that is what they determined. And so when the kid was 18 months old, I got custody, and he moved up to Arkansas. But that's not the end of me struggling with substance abuse. You know, for me, it is about like impulsivity and compulsivity, like just all sorts of, you know, like anything. Like so after my whole household quit smoking weed in order to help me get custody, and then eventually we're like, well, what if we smoke this synthetic weed?
What, like spice?
Yeah, like spice.
Oh my gosh.
And then I had a terrible experience on that where for a couple of minutes I couldn't speak. I couldn't get out of my own head. And I was just sitting there just like an observer in my own body. And
that's scary.
And it was really scary. And then, you know, so I dropped that immediately, and still trying to find something to satisfy that, like something's missing, or like what's the one thing that's going to solve my problems? You know, like it wasn't alcohol, it wasn't weed, it wasn't synthetic weed, it wasn't, you know, like anything, you know, like, and
And what were these problems that needed to be solved by something outside of yourself?
Anxiety. Just like living like under fucking like capitalist rule, like just dealing with the struggles of like being poor in America.
The discomfort of being human and being in historically marginalized communities.
Yeah, exactly. There was a moment in time when after I'd gotten custody, I still work in that same job where everybody knew me as the person who didn't drink. I still smoking cigarettes. But I happened to, I was a baker. I was like putting a cake in the display case, and I look over at the bulletin board and I see something that's like, do you struggle with pornography addiction? And I was like, oh, honestly, maybe I do. So I called up this study. I was interviewed, and they said, I don't qualify. But the lady doing the study still wanted to help me with everything that I said I wanted help with in my interview. And so she became outside of her study, I was her only private
client.
There you go. And so talking with her made me realize a lot of stuff about, like I was saying before, the compulsivity and impulsivity. And even as far back as, when I was in high school, thinking that I'm the right-minded, sober friend, I'm still taking Adderall, had not considered to me that was a drug.
Methamphetamine.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's a later story too. Yeah.
So you're talking to, was she a therapist? What was she a social worker? Something of that nature?
It was something of that nature. I believe that this study that she was doing about pornography addiction was getting her doctorate through the U of A.
Okay.
And that was part of that. So she was a student. I had to sign some paper acknowledging that she wasn't licensed and all this stuff. And, so she talked me through a lot of my issues. It was really crucial, to have that counseling, to have somebody that I felt wasn't trying to tell me that it was all my fault, like AA, or
someone who had your best interest in mind, someone who's actually curious about your healing and your trauma.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so from the counseling, led me to get a, a licensed therapist, after that was finished. And then, from that, getting into yoga and meditation helped supplement activities to do in the time when I was still having cravings. So with the counseling, I started to zone in on the
the goal, what you're trying to reach.
What I was trying to run from.
What you're trying to run from.
What I was trying to medicate. What I was
the opposite.
Trying to, yeah, exactly. And so it was just about feeling alone and not having community, not feeling a part of a community, even if I participated in it. And so I would attach myself and just be along for the ride. And oftentimes that ride meant, ecstasy or meth or just anything that was going on. I wasn't saying no to it.
Because of the need to be included.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you found the root of what you were trying to get to was sort of a loneliness, even if you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you take that information?
Like most things that I learn, it takes me a really long time. So it's I could be given the bit of information and then it doesn't really settle in my brain for months or years even, I'm just going through the steps of working, coming home, being a parent,
survival.
Yeah, exactly. I found eventually I found community in Northwest Arkansas when I started working for Arcegas. And because of the people who worked there, I felt like I had a more direct access to the things that were going on here in town. Started to get involved in like the local punk scene and play at the DIY venues like Backspace or La La Land. And even though lots of people there are drinking, like I'm just sitting there with my sparkling water, like experiencing it like just as they are, like not drunk, but like in the community, part of something.
Yeah, when you have that true sense of community, you don't need to mask it or like use the substances to try to feel included because you already feel included.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
That's beautiful.
And as I've gotten older, my kid's gotten older. He's in high school now, and I get more involved with the like school board meetings or city council meetings, and now he's in the marching band. So I go to the football games to support my kid in the marching band, and I never thought that I would feel like I was a part of like the community of a town or but like going to these football games, sitting there, understanding what's going on with the games, just being like, okay, so that's our team. Our team did something good. Oh, I see it. Yay. Mm-hmm. And everybody around me is like, yay.
Everyone's celebrating as a group. Yeah.
Yeah. It like all I had to do was just show up. I just had to show up and participate. And then I'm a part of the community. They treat me as if I'm supposed to be there, like, because I am. That's the secret. It's like,
you belong. You belong everywhere you go.
Exactly. And it's something that I just never knew before.
Do you still have cravings?
Yeah. I'd say my biggest cravings are for cigarettes, like just smoking a cigarette. It always sounds so good.
What do you do when that comes up?
Pretend.
Pretend what?
I pretend to smoke a cigarette.
Okay.
Like if the craving is really, really like getting me, then I'll put my 2 fingers to my lips and I'll inhale and I'll hold it and I'll exhale. And I just do that enough. And so something that I learned from a podcast that you recommended, Dharma Punks, is why that works. It's because like the exaggerated breaths, you're taking the breath in and then a longer exhale, and then a breath in, then a longer exhale. And that tells your body that it's safe.
Yes, it activates the parasympathetic nervous system.
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah. So, without even realizing it, I was doing that just by pretending to smoke.
That's so cool. So I also asked Sarah this. I'm interested in people who are parenting because I know there's like a lot of like, oh, mommy wine culture. Like, oh, parenting is so stressful and so difficult. Like we deserve to take the edge off in this way. Obviously, parenting consists of challenges, and you've been sober the vast majority of it. How do you take on those challenges of parenting, and how do you adapt to it in a way that is like healthy in your life instead of leaning back on substances?
For a lot of my parenting of my oldest kid, I was, I had a small village. I had my brother and I had my sister. They were helping me for a while. And, I always had my folks in Texas that they would come up here and help me. Even before I had custody, they would bring my kid up here to see me because I couldn't afford it myself. And leaning on that community for support when the cravings happened was crucial. Just having somebody to call up and vent about the frustrations made that weight lighter. I was really fortunate. I know a lot of people don't have that, don't have access to that support. I feel, even more fortunate now, I've got a long-term partner, EK, that I've had another child with, and So, like,
the village grows larger.
The village grows larger.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to take a step away and pretend to smoke a cigarette.
Activate your parasympathetic nervous system.
Exactly. That's been crucial.
And have you been able to have conversations with, I know your baby's too young, can't even probably understand words yet, but with your older kid, have you been able to have like conversations with him about like, oh, like addiction exists in our family? Like, here's what I went through. Like, have you been able to have a conversation like that?
Yes, we've had many conversations. I try to be as age appropriately open as possible with him, and like, unfortunately, like, I make mistakes and I learn from it. So sometimes I've told him things that he didn't need to know yet, from my perspective. But we're all learning. But he does seem receptive to understanding that addiction is hereditary, or can be, which, had my folks shared that with me when I was younger, and then talked about the rest of our family that is struggling or have struggled with their addictions, perhaps I could have saved myself and a lot of other people pain and suffering. But, like I said, we're all learning.
Totally. It's important information to share with your kids, just like, so they have the information. You know what I mean? You can't ultimately you can't control another person, but like, it's a responsible adult thing to do, to give accurate information and education at age appropriate levels. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm curious what you would say to someone who's listening who is thinking about getting sober or getting off drugs. What advice would you give to them? Do you have any tips or thoughts for someone who's just at that very beginning stage of not having any skills yet, but just this desire, like, I'm ready for a change?
Very much like what Logan said, if a person is considering that, then it would be beneficial to look further into it. It doesn't work for everybody. AA, MA, NA, all the A's, they can provide support. Thankfully, there are other groups forming these days, such as yours, to provide support, a similar support outside of a church, outside of a historically more judgmental setting, I'd say.
Perhaps what you're saying is maybe finding community, maybe someone else's problem could be rooted in a loneliness they don't understand.
Very much so. Very much so. These days we've got the internet. So we got Reddit, we got all these places you can go to. I can't remember what it's called, like r/no-leaves or leaves.
Oh, I don't know what that is, but I know there's a quit drinking subreddit that has 500,000 people posting on it.
Well, there you go.
Mm-hmm. But I'm not sure the one that you mentioned.
So I recently quit smoking marijuana again. It may be almost 16 years since I've had any alcohol. But in those 16 years, I've struggled with all sorts of other stuff, I struggled with quitting all sorts of other things and recognizing my impulse to just say yes. This was something I wanted to bring up before. When I was a teenager, I read the Satanic Bible. And in the Satanic Bible, it says that you should say yes to yourself. You should lean into your carnal desires. You should do all these things that Christianity says are sins. And that sounded really good to me when I was 13 or so when I read it.
Go on.
But as I got older, I kind of learned that that's just stupid. It's it's missing the whole point of interaction. You can't just say yes to everything. You
get the carnal desire, then you can take a moment to think, is this actually what I want for myself?
Yes.
Yeah. Equanimity.
Yes.
Wonderful. Is there anything else that you didn't get a chance to talk about? Well, my dear, it's been wonderful. It's been interesting and silly and fun. And I'm glad that you were able to peel back the layers of your onion and find the root and solve that problem. It sounds like it was rough for a while. You didn't give up. The root was loneliness, and now you have community. So great job.
Very true. Thank you so much.
All right. Recovery Demystified is produced and edited by me, Early Brunner. Stevie Petet made our logo. Our social media manager is Kaylee Bausch. Logan Bragg wrote our beautiful theme music. And we are entirely supported by donations as a 501c3 nonprofit. Your tax-deductible donations can be made to our Venmo at Recovery Demystified or to our PayPal, info@recoverydemystified.com. Thanks for listening.